I didn't expect to love this anime as much as I did when I first started watching it, but slowly over time it's come to take a special place in my heart. Let's talk about Dungeon Meshi. Before we continue with the video, if you like movie, anime, and game reviews, hopefully in the future, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Anyway, back to the video. Now, I know the English name for this show is Delicious in Dungeon, but everyone I know knows it as Dungeon Meshi, and it's much easier to say Dungeon Meshi, so we're sticking with that. Dungeon Meshi is a show that aired from the winter 2024 all the way to the spring 2024 season, and follows this group of adventurers who are venturing into a dungeon, and in the first episode, the entire party is decimated by a red dragon. Now, the healer of the party is eaten by this dragon, but before she's eaten, she manages to help her party members escape, manage to evacuate them from the dungeon. And once they're evacuated, 2 members of the party just leave because they are done with this. But Laios, the warrior slash tank of the party, who's also the healer's brother, decides that he wants to go in and rescue his sister. And he is accompanied by the elf mage of this party, Marcel, and Chilchak, the half-foot locksmith, who basically disables traps and opens treasure chests for them. Now, as they venture back into the dungeon, there is one problem. They lost all their supplies in their confrontation with the red dragon, so now they're broke and they don't have food. So Laios, who has always been wanting to do this, decides that it is time to eat monsters, much to the disgust of his 2 companions. Overhearing them, Senshi, who is a dwarf that has experience in cooking monsters, decides to join their party, and so they venture forth into the dungeon, trying different types of food made from different parts of different monsters, all while aiming for the goal of rescuing Falin, their healer. And like I said in the beginning, when I first started watching this anime, it was fun, but nothing really grabbed my attention. It was an episodic anime about cooking different types of food, and each episode is a different dish made from different monster parts, and that was the main gist of the anime for especially the first core and the first half. And while entertaining and while fun, it really didn't stand out to me at that time. But over time, I fell in love with the kooky personalities of these characters who are at odds with each other, but somehow they manage to work together despite their differences and despite their disagreements in their beliefs, because they are dead set on this goal of rescuing Falin. So that means some of them have to make compromises, especially Marshall, who is extremely opposed to eating monsters in the beginning because it's just unnatural, it's not right. But she comes around to it, and as this party slowly bonds, you bond with them and you feel like you're a member of the group. And man, is this anime funny, from interactions between characters to physical comedy to gags to throwaway lines that just put a smile on your face. This anime is hilarious. Like, during comedic moments, I find myself at least snickering, if not downright laughing, because these characters, man, they're just so incredible and so incredibly funny, and their differences and their arguments and their facial expressions, the animation of their facial expressions really just puts a smile on your face. Now, while I'm describing this anime, you might get this impression that this is a comedy show, and while it is, there is a dark undertone and undercurrent of just darkness there. And that's quite evident from the first episode itself, because the opening scene is this party getting fully decimated by this dragon, and it's very gruesome. And then we just jump into comedy, and that's something that happens with this anime, is that dark undercurrent that's just there, and you know it's there, but also tonal whiplash at times, because you go from dark moments, these really either sad or gruesome moments, and then you're just going to moments of comedy. And that kind of tonal whiplash may not be great for some, but it is what makes this anime for me, because it keeps you focused. It is not fully comedy and aloof, but it is not also so dark where it just feels like it's being ultra edgy. And it was during the midpoint of this series that I truly got invested into it, because that midpoint brings to the front that darkness that we've seen sort of underneath the surface is front and center. But it doesn't stay there too long, don't worry. They jump into comedy pretty soon, but that midpoint, that huge turning point in this anime is what just hooked me. And besides these main 4 characters, the other supporting characters are also incredibly done, especially Kabru, who is, I would say, the juxtaposition to Laios, because he is this proper party leader. He has the background, he has the looks, he has the charisma, but hilariously the way this anime deals with this party is by just making them fail at every single point possible. Even though they have a capable leader and a quite solid team composition, they just end up failing a lot of the time, and that is just hilarious. And most of the time, Laios' group just come across them and unintentionally rob them. So that is another great thing about the anime, is this juxtaposition between these 2 characters, and also exploring the other 2 party members who left Laios' party and what they're up to now and what they're doing. Now, the animation is done by Studio Trigger, and I could not tell that this was done by Studio Trigger from the initial episodes, because this looks nothing like a Trigger show. When I say Trigger show, those of you who have experienced watching Trigger shows will understand the visual language in Trigger shows, especially in shows like Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Kill la Kill, heck, even My Little Academia, which is a fantasy similar to this, has a very distinct visual style that is Triggers. Now, the more you watch though, you can see the Trigger-isms coming through, and you're like, oh yeah, this is definitely a Trigger show, but it's lacking that signature Trigger light spectacle. Still, it is incredibly animated. The action sequences are great, the Sakuga is great, but always the best part for me for this show is just the facial expressions. The facial expressions help sell the comedy in this show. I mean, it's on par with Konosuba in terms of its facial expression comedy. Anyway, fantasy fans, we are eating good, because on top of something that's incredibly poignant like Freerun, we get something like this, which is also has moments of heart, but is just incredibly hilarious and scratches a different type of itch. I give Dungeon Meshi an 8.5 out of 10. Anyway, have you seen Dungeon Meshi? If you have, please let me know who's your favorite character in the comments below. Mine is Kobold Izutsumi, because she is basically my spirit animal, and I'll see you in the next video.